Suneer,
Yes, Shruti.
this has been one interesting tri-series. West Indies beat South Africa, Australia beat West Indies, South Africa beat Australia, Australia returned the favour and beat South Africa, and then West Indies got back at the Australians, and now South Africa have completed the cycle by beating West Indies. Phew, it's all been happening.
It's all been happening, as the great Bill Laurie would say. And I'm hoping what you just said made sense to a lot of listeners because the way it's gone, it's been really confusing. But hello, everyone. World Cricket Chat is back to figure out who has the better chances of winning this next encounter between Australia and South Africa on Sunday. Shruti, why don't we begin with you for a change? What do the cards say for the Australians?
Great, I'm ready to get started with them. The Australians would obviously not be very happy after their loss to the West Indies. They probably feel they lacked the required aggression. Maybe they got lazy and started losing focus. The cards do show concerns of this repeating in this game as well. Rather than just thinking about attacking, Australia will need to worry more about their batting focus at the start and at the end of their innings. Bowling too will need to be sharper because although South Africa will give them the opportunities, they may end up being a little too generous themselves. Now, what do you say about the Australian side?
Shruti, in our last chat around the Aussie team, we had noted this that there's still some rustiness associated with the Aussies, and it looked very evident that that was the same case that came back to bite them in their defeat to the West Indies. The finishing with the bat was under par for starters, and then there were dropped catches when West Indies chased down 266 to go with the bowling that I thought lacked a little bite in the absence of Mitchell Starc, and in those conditions especially. With David Warner missing out due to his thumb injury and Stark wrapped up in a so-called cotton wool post his return from his fitness concerns. West Indies took full toll of the situation, and that's something they can ill afford yet again in this very crucial match.
So, any particular player you would like to point out for the Aussie team for this game?
Well, I have no doubt in my mind that Stark will be back for this one, unless obviously he's re-injured himself. Australia cannot afford to lose this, although they can still qualify by beating West Indies in the last game. They wouldn't want it to get to that stage. It will be interesting to see how the South African batsmen handle Stark. What Australia would also hope for is for the batsmen to have picked up something about batting on slow tracks. See, the one at Barbados, where this match is going to be played for the first time in this series, has been traditionally a quicker wicket. But over the years, pitches all over the Caribbean have slowed down a little. Obviously, cannot make much of it without having seen the pitch, but don't think it will be a very fast pitch either. So that's something to watch out for. Moving on to South Africa, what do the cards say about them, Shruti?
Well, here I only thought the Australians will have issues, but the South Africans will make it no easier on themselves. They will have the right plan set in place and they will even make the right changes. But they will need to be careful of not confusing themselves towards the end of the game, which we see them do so very often. The cards are quite positive with how their batting could start off, but they will need to make better use of those final overs. Especially, as I mentioned earlier, the Australian bowlers will give them the opportunity to do so. Bowling should be steady, confident, and should actually adapt easily to some of these new conditions. Fielding will need to step up and be a tad bit more aggressive. Now on to you, Suneer. What's your take on the South Africans?
You spoke about those final overs, and I think that's where the difference has been between teams. Before I go on to South Africa, I need to quickly say this. Since the ODI rules changed last year, it's become tougher to bat in those final overs, final 10 overs, in fact, where the third power play begins than it was earlier with the previous rules. So teams could well do to tone down their expectations. This is what South Africa did against the West Indies in their previous game, I think. The pitch wasn't too conducive to stroke play. And yet, with 8 wickets in hand and in the final 10 overs, South Africa had a set batsman they could blast off and scored nearly 100 runs as a result. That's what teams will need to quickly adjust to in ODI cricket. And in this all-important game in particular, South Africa will need to do that again against a much stronger bowling attack in Australia.
So who's your standout South African player?
Well, among the current crop of cricketers around the world, the bowler with the best bowling average is Stark with an average of 19.46. But talking about South Africa, Imran Tahir is not too behind at 22.75. And to see a spinner with a clean action do so well in international cricket in this day and age of batting-friendly rules is heartwarming. Tahir ran through the West Indian lineup like a hot knife through butter last game to become only the 10th bowler in the history of ODI cricket to pick up 7 wickets in the game. And while it might get tougher for him against Australia, his confidence will be sky high going into the match. And I think you will be able to see him run all over the park yet again, as he usually does when he's celebrating his wickets. Looking forward to his battles with Steve Smith and company, because we all know how good a player of spin bowling Steve Smith is. Speaking of battles, Shruti, who is winning this one?
It's a tight call for me, as both teams will have the tendency to lose focus. But I'm going with the team that will just lose it less. So it's Tara advantage South Africa. What's your call, Suneer?
This one's too tough for me, and the reason why I say this is because of what has transpired in the series. What you just mentioned at the start of the podcast, with each team beating the other one at different times in the tournament. But I think the team batting second could have an advantage, and I say this because it's a new, fresh pitch, and the team batting first might need some time to get used to it. So advantage team batting second, Shruti.
So we may or may not be on the same side then? Well, we'll have to wait for the toss on this one.
Exactly, Shruti. But that's all we have for today. Do subscribe. We'll be back very soon with some international cricket. Bye bye for now.